Hello friends, welcome to this video. My name is Amir Hakmi. I am a Senior Solutions Architect with AWS. And in today's video, we're going to learn how to build a generative AI application that is capable of interacting with the outside world. Specifically, we're going to build a stock market analyzer application. So if you are a non-technical person who would like to build something like this, we're going to show you how to leverage services like Amazon Bedrock Studio and Amazon Q for developers to literally write no code whatsoever from your end and be able to complete the application end to end. So as I mentioned, today's app is going to be a stock market analyzer application that has certain capabilities where it can interact with stock market API. In this case, we're choosing Alpha Vantage. Alpha Vantage, it offers a free access to certain APIs where we can get things like stock market price, get information about particular tickers or symbols, and there are plenty other APIs that we can actually consider. But in today's application, we're going to focus on two different APIs. One is to get the stock market information about a particular stock, and then the other one is to actually get the price of this stock from the Alpha Vantage API. Now we're going to include into this application a searching mechanism where we can actually upload or push some sort of like financial documents about particular companies. Think of it like 10K documents, financial documents, to our repository. We're going to include this knowledge base repository within the application where we can actually search from that knowledge base and retrieve information as we're interacting with these APIs all together. And all this is powered by generative AI, and we're going to show you how to do this. So for those who don't know, Amazon Bedrock, it's a managed service offered by AWS to makes it really easy for organizations and companies to access a variety of LLMs and foundation models from vendors like Anthropic, Amazon, Meta, and a few others as well. Now, Amazon Bedrock Studio, it's a service that allows builders to actually go and experiment with with generative AI application, building those applications and sharing these applications with each other. And pretty much the idea behind it is to move from ideation to POC to MVP to production fairly quickly. Now, Amazon Q for developers, think of it as a tool that also created by AWS to allow developers to write code faster and enhance their capability of writing the code. And so think of it as an AI coding assistant that lives within your IDE and in a few other places. But if you are a programmer or a developer and you have a particular IDE in mind, in my case, I use VS Code, VS Studio, then you can eventually just put it in there and interact with Q to help you write a better code. For those non-technical, we're going to show you how to use it within the IDE and just kind of chat with it to let it generate the code for you. So we're going to go ahead and start in the kind of the build. The first thing we're going to do is navigate to Bedrock Studio. So this is the Bedrock Studio that we logged in or we accessed right at this point. So we're going to go ahead and create a new project, and let's call it Stock Market Analyzer, something like that. And let's go ahead and create. So right now we're creating a project. A project, think of it as just a container that may contain a variety of set of applications as well as components. And the reason behind it is you can create, let's say, a certain set of components like APIs and knowledge bases and stuff like that, but those can be used across different applications. So once you put those inside a project, you can actually mix and match. So think of the component as one-to-many relationship where one component can be used across different applications as long as they are inside the same project. I've been experimenting a lot recently, and that's why I have plenty of projects in here. But this is the one that we're going to create right now. Typically, it takes like about a minute or two to complete. But once it's complete, Well, here it is. We're going to go ahead and access it. Now we get to this view where we have applications to the left and components to the right. Now it shows 0. We don't have anything created at this point. We can start by creating the components. So we're going to click on create component, and the first thing we would like to do is to create a function. And a function, if I go back to this architecture diagram, these two API calls are pretty much, think of it as functions, where we're telling the application or Bedrock Studio to invoke an API when needed to get certain information from Alpha Vantage. So that's what we can define as a function. So let's go back here and let's call it get stock price. And feel free to add description in here, but we're going to skip that. Now, we would like to define a function schema. Now, a function schema is an OpenAPI schema. It's in YAML format. And this is how the agent who's invoking this API will understand what this API means and how to interact with the API endpoint. So it needs a set of information to actually go ahead and generate the API URL and push it, query it, get the expected response back. So this is where we define this API call in a schema, and this is an OpenAPI schema. Now, let's go ahead and generate the schema for our first function, which is getting the price. To do that, we can go ahead and navigate to Alpha Vantage website. You will get to this view. Make sure you get a free API key first, and you can do that just clicking on this button, and you can claim your free API key in here. And then if you go back, there is this stock market API to actually take a look at what all the available APIs within Alpha Vantage. And for today's application, we're going to focus on two APIs, as I mentioned earlier. One is the quote endpoint. And if we click on it and it says trending, and I agree, it's pretty handy, pretty useful. It's a really an API that returns the latest price and volume information of a ticker of your choice. And I think it's a very powerful API. We can use it for free. In this case, you just need to pass certain parameters as long as you're passing that API. So things like what's the function, the symbol, in this case, like IBM as an example, and a few other information that you would like to pass it. Now, how do we define the schema for something like this? That's where we're going to use Amazon Q. So if I kind of just squeeze this a little bit. So this is my IDE. This is, think of it like a place for developers to generate code. For those who don't know, if you know what an IDE is, then you're in the right spot. But pretty much you can set up Amazon Q to interact with it from within your IDE, in this case, VS Code. Here you will see it once you install it and you set it up, you will see it showing up as Amazon Q, where you can actually go ahead and click on new tab, and it will give you this chat interface where you can actually chat with Q about your code, and you can ask it certain questions to generate codes and do things on your behalf. So we would like Q to generate a YAML OpenAPI schema for us. So what I did, I actually put this prompt, which is plain English, to kind of instruct Q what I really wanted it to do for me. So I'm telling Q here that you are an API documentation expert. I need you to create a valid OpenAPI schema in a YAML format based on this information. And I'm kind of referencing the API description. And what I did, I just kind of copied this information from Alpha Vantage website in here, and I'm just gonna replace it inside the API description section. Just gonna put it as copy paste, and then I'm adding some instructions toward the end, and I'm telling what to look for and what things to kind of keep in mind. But feel free to modify the prompt to make it do whatever you want it to do. This is how you can interact with Amazon Q in this case. So we're just gonna copy this and paste it here. And the expectation is that now Q will digest this information. It will come back to us with an OpenAPI schema formatted and ready to be used. So let's quickly just eyeball this. So the few things that we need to be mindful of is, first is the URL. Did it really generate the right OpenAPI schema with the correct URL, meaning that the API endpoint, in this case, it's alphavantage.co/query, and that looks accurate because keep in mind, I gave it here as an example. So it kind of understood that the URL will look something like this. So it kind of got it right. It added actually the path, which is how to get the global quote, give it some description, which is fundamental in this case, because that's what the agent will understand and will read this description to understand what it needs to use this path for. It added all the parameters that we need, the function, the symbol, the data type, the API key, and it added a bunch of other information. So to me, this looks accurate. And again, I don't have to be an expert to tell. You can just, from logic, you can tell that. Don't worry about the formatting. What we can do, we can copy this. And if you go back to Bedrock Studio and you actually paste it in here, and you hit validate schema, so the Bedrock Studio will give you this validation a message to say you have a valid schema or not. So if you're missing certain important stuff, it will let you know. So for example, if you don't have descriptions for a certain path or a certain parameter, it will just complain and say you don't have enough description, which is crucial for the agent to understand what it needs to use this parameter for. So this looks accurate. Again, we don't have to modify or anything. I think there's a bug here. Whenever I add the function schema, it will just delete the function name. So let's go ahead and add it back, get stock price. And one thing we'd like to do as well is to authenticate, because Alpha Vantage does require an API key to authenticate. We kind of discussed this earlier. We said like API key is actually expected in the query itself. So we're going to change that to send the key within the query. We are going to add the name, and that should align with what Alpha Vantage is asking us to send, which is API key. We're going to just put it as an API key. And here, feel free to add the value of the API key that you got from Alpha Vantage. I'm just going to put mine here, and we're going to go ahead and hit create. So that should create our first function in Bedrock Studio. Now, Bedrock Studio is going to create all the necessary backend services, including Bedrock agents and few other like Lambda functions and all the stuff that is needed without you really worrying about it and how to provision all this. So it's pretty amazing, pretty straightforward. And typically it takes like a minute or two to put it all together. Now this is, we created the first one. We'll go ahead and actually create the second one. It's another function. If I go back to this architecture diagram we talked about, we created the first one, which is get the stock price. Now we need to create the get stock information API call. So same thing, we navigate to Alpha Vantage and we look for something under the fundamental data, and in this case it's company overview. And this API returns the company information, financial ratios, and other key metrics for the equity specified, for the company specified. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to copy this information and we're going to update our prompt in here. And let's delete the first and then just paste it in here. And then same instructions, nothing magic. We're going to copy this entire thing and come back to our friends, Amazon Q for developer, and go ahead and ask it to create the OpenAPI schema for us. And the expectation that it should do the same with some differences, like for example, the parameters will look different a little bit because those parameters here we have only 3, and that kind of sounds or looks accurate to me. Again, the important stuff here is like what is the server URL that it's pointing to, and that is the correct one. So we can just copy this as is, and we go back here and we paste it, we do the same thing, we validate the schema, which looks good. We give it a name, get stock info, and then same exact thing, we authenticate, we pass it in the query, we add it as an API key, and then we copy and paste the key that we have, and we go ahead and create. Now, this may look redundant to the first function that we created, even though that each one serves like a specific purpose. In reality, you can collapse these two functions into a single function where you will have your OpenAPI schema pretty much just has these two different paths set together. So one path is to get the summary, and the other path is to get the stock price. And then the agent will understand that it has access to two paths within the same function, and it can decide which path to use. Now, the reason I put it this way in this video, just to kind of make it clear and easier to digest and understand like what's happening here behind the scene and how the agent works, and the fact that you can create separate functions or you can collapse them into a single function. It's a design discussion, and it's a limitation because you can use within an application, and we're going to show you that in a minute. You can only use up to 5 functions at a time within a single app. So right now we have 2, so we have 3 remaining. So if there is a need to squeeze multiple things into a single function, then that's probably the right way to do it. So again, it's up to kind of debate and discussion as well. Now, the third thing that we're going to create is our knowledge base. As we talked earlier, we're going to push some financial documents. We need to index all this information, and we need to be able to search from it as we're invoking these API calls. So how do we do that? Again, we go back to Bedrock Studio, and we go ahead and we create a knowledge base. And we give it a name. Let's call it 10K knowledge base. You need to provide some description, and this is important because the agent will look at this description to understand what this knowledge base is all about. What does it contain? How the agent can use this knowledge base to retrieve information useful for the end user query. So you can say knowledge base that has 10K documents about certain companies and stocks, something like that. We can just start putting the data source. In this case, right now, within Bedrock Studio, it's only supported to upload. So we're going to upload a file. And if I go to Amazon 10K, we push this. We're gonna just push one file just for the demo purposes. In this case, it's Amazon 10K. There are 2 things that here we can select from. Right now, it's limiting to, for example, the embedding models. It's limiting to one option, which is Titan G1. Same thing for OpenSearch. It's only limiting to OpenSearch serverless, but this is subject to change, and I'm sure in the future we'll see more options. But this is what Bedrock Studio actually can work with at this point. So we're going to go ahead and create this. And once we do this, once we create this knowledge base, pretty much the Bedrock Studio will generate all the infrastructure as code or CloudFormation templates to generate all the necessary components, including the vector database, which is in this case, it's the OpenSearch serverless vector DB, and it will interact with Bedrock to get the embeddings from Titan G1, which pretty much getting the numerical representation of this 10K document and store this embedding / numerical representation into the vector database. It will do all that behind the scene for you, so you don't have to worry about provisioning or managing any of this technically. Now this may take like a minute or 2 because it needs to create all the resources, and then it's going to do the synchronization process as well. So while this is being created, we'll go ahead and start creating the app. Now creating the app should be fairly simple and straightforward. We're going to first select the model that we would like to use within this application, and this is where Bedrock Studio become really powerful because you can excuse me, you can pick and choose what model. You can experiment and you can try model 1, and then if you don't like it, you can try another model. But in this case, we're just going to use Anthropic Claude 3 Sonnet. We give it a name, stock market analyzer, and here you need to provide the system prompt like any other generative AI application. You need to give it instructions for it to behave in a certain way. And I just did that earlier by just putting this system prompt together, where I'm saying you are an AI assistant specializing in retrieving and doing interpretation to stock market and data news. You have access to this endpoints from Alpha Vantage to get the stock price, get the stock info. You have access to this knowledge base, and I just give it some limitation. So just high level instruction. And again, this is a prompt that we need to engineer, so it's not a one-time thing. We can try this, and if it doesn't work for us, we need to go and reiterate. So prompt engineering is key in here, but we have to start somewhere, and this is what I kind of decided to start with. The next thing we can do is click on parameters, and we can change these parameters. Since we're dealing with stock market information, more factual things, I would recommend to decrease the temperature, almost set it to 0. For those who don't know, temperature is what tell the model, the LLM or the foundation model, to be less creative when we set it to 0 and be more creative when we set it to 1. So you can choose depending on the use case. In our use case, 0 makes sense because we're dealing with facts and we're stock market information. So the second thing we're going to use or to do is to select our data. And our data is, in this case, is the knowledge base that we created, and it looks like it has been completed. So we're going to select it. And then from there, we are going to select the functions that we also created. There are 2 functions, the get stock info and get the stock price. And then that's it, really. Guardrails, right now, it is not enabled if you use data or if you use functions. It can only work when you use it without data and without functions. So for that reason, we're going to skip the guardrails for now. And then UI is just cosmetic. We're not going to spend time on that, but just to kind of modify the UI a little bit and add certain questions, but we're just going to skip that part. So far, so good. We're going to save. And we're going to test it and see if it works. So I just put some questions together, and let's ask the first question in here. What is the stock price for Amazon? And the expectation here is that the application is going to be deployed first. So it may take a minute or 2 to complete. So the way Bedrock Studio works, you glue everything within the app. So you create all these different components, and then you glue it in the app. You can say, I'm going to use this component and this component and this knowledge base. And then you deploy the app. So deploying the app, the way it works right now is when you ask the first question, that's the time it kind of kicks off to be deployed. Maybe that will change over time, but right now that's the case. So if you wonder why it's taking some time to complete, that's probably the reason why. But once it's complete, it will go ahead and trigger the agent behind the scene that it got created, and it will the agent will start thinking using the React mechanism to say, what do I need to do to achieve this information or to get this information. So since it has the system prompt, it knows that it has access to certain tools. So it's going to make a decision that in order to get the stock price, I'm going to actually make a call to Alpha Vantage and get the stock price information. I'm going to look at the OpenAPI schema that we generated here using our friend Q for Developer. It's going to consider all this description, and it's going to make a determination what is the API endpoint will look like and the URL, and it's going to pass it over and hopefully get the information back. And here we go. We actually got it right. So according to the data from the Alpha Vantage, and it's kind of give you this confirmation that it looked to Alpha Vantage to get that details. The stock open at 195, reached a high of 199 and low of 194, which is pretty good for Amazon actually, because we have an increase in stock. So now let's ask another question. What is the market cap for Amazon? And in this case, it's hopefully the answer should be faster. The reason is because now the app is deployed, and now the agent is ready and it's already thinking, and it's going to make that invocation. In this case, it came back with information about like the market cap. Again, it kind of triggered Alpha Vantage. In this case, it actually triggered the get stock info, because that's the API that gives you this additional information about a stock market, whether it's market cap, whether it's enterprise value to revenue, and you can actually continue this conversation with the application, but you get the idea here. Now, to test our knowledge base, let's go ahead and ask another question. What have been the revenue and the profit trends for Amazon over the past 3 years? And let's go ahead and trigger that. And you will get the response from the 10K document in this case, because the agent will make a determination that now I need to look at past 3 years. I need to historical information. 10K does contain certain information in there. So we'll actually apply, do the semantic search, and it's going to come back with the results and the answer. So, and then here it can, said, Amazon net sales increased by 9%, and it's actually giving you the source. Even though the source is not very clear at this point, but that gives you the hint that actually sourced this information from somewhere. So it's not coming up with this details or this information from its own knowledge. It's actually sourcing this knowledge from somewhere. And in this case, it's the 10K document that we have in our knowledge base, and it's going to provide the answer back to the user. That's it, really. This is what I wanted to show you. Right now we have an app. You can actually go ahead and share this app, and if you have people that you would like to share it with them, you can do that by looking at the so if you go here, you have this app. You can actually share the entire project with them. So you can go ahead and share, and you say individual user, and let's say if I have someone like another Hack Me Too in this case, you can just go ahead and share it with them and say, here's the link, feel free to use this app, and they should be able to log in with their SSO, and they should be able to access all the information. That's it, friends. This is what I wanted to show you. Hopefully this was a good content for you. I will share more details in the description, and then looking forward to have your feedback as well. But thank you so much for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. Bye.